Well, that's a really hard question to answer right now because there's so many, nuances in that in the economic situation here in the United States that we've got to look at. Right now we're playing dangerous games with a trade war between China and the U.S. I've said on this show before that that we're getting into a situation where there is a concept of mutually assured economic destruction, whereas we get into a tariff war with China, then we can't afford the inexpensive products that they produce and we buy in mass here. So that has a big ripple effect on the other global markets. The reality is that the Trump economic policies, especially when it comes to tariffs, haven't been well thought out, or at least hasn't been well presented to the American people. The bottom line here is this idea that countries and foreign manufacturers are going to be paying for billions into the treasury coffers of the United States are absolutely incorrect. Everybody knows, even fourth grade school students that take basic economics 101 understand that tariffs are passed down to the consumers. It is the American consumer that pays for these. This is why this is a dangerous game.
Mr. Thomas, can I ask you a question, please? At the beginning of your answer, you mentioned that you cannot answer my question now, and it needs some time to know more about. What do you predict, sir? This is my first question. Secondly, about the tariffs and China war, of course, and the tariffs that Donald Trump has been imposing on not only China and the trade war between the United States and China, but it's overwhelming now everywhere. Your narrative, please, on this, on the 71st day in Trump's administration as the President of the United States. How do you read and assess the situation, sir?
Well, number one, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Remember, today is
71 days.
But today is Liberation Day for the American economy, according to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is about to announce all these massive tariffs on some of them on some of our closest allies. We still don't know what the effect of that's going to do. What Donald Trump's got to realize is that if we start putting tariffs on them and we're not importing their goods, they're going to have to sell their goods to somebody. You know who doesn't care about this stuff? Places like China and Russia and India. They will buy their goods and they will start trading more. And then we're going to be left out in the cold. The U.S. doesn't have the capacity to manufacture and offset that big trade gap that we could possibly getting ourselves into with Donald Trump's trade war. A lot of economists here are looking at this and saying, look, this is a very dangerous game, as I've said before.
So, sir, you believe that he's playing a dangerous game?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to Donald Trump's economics, two things can happen. One, he's going to create such a trade gap that it's going to be almost insurmountable for us to affect. The rise in inflation, the price of goods is going to go up. Everything that people...
Which is already happening now in the United States, sir, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're seeing that in the first 100 days. Remember, Donald Trump campaigned on we're going to bring the price of eggs lower. We're going to reduce inflation. The stock market's going to be white hot again. Stock market just closed last week with its worst quarter in almost 10 years. We've seen the price of eggs come down a little bit, but inflation is still continuing to go up. And a lot of economists here are blaming that possibly on the threat of tariffs. Now, you impose the tariffs today on places like, just take China out. He's talking about putting tariffs on South Korea, Canada, Mexico, the EU as a whole. Those are our biggest trading partners. They take and we export a lot of American manufactured goods to those trading partners. Why would you do that? Because it's going to hurt us in the long run.
Sir, many of the recent factory projects were backed by incentives from the Biden-era legislation, like the CHIPS and Inflation Reduction Acts. How sustainable is Trump's approach if he dismantles those programs, which I think, from my own perspective, I don't know, or I want to know from you, sir, is Trump planning on dismantling those programs?
We've gone through this. Usually, we see something like this with every presidency. You know, he's highlighting. Right now, he's highlighting Hyundai, for example, the big Hyundai factory build that they're talking about putting in down south. You know, we've seen this go on. We've seen BMW build in South Carolina, where we've seen Honda build in South Carolina, big BMW factories down in Alabama. The reality is that there are times where they have worked these incentives and these big announcements of how many jobs they're going to create. But we also saw under the first Trump administration that he was going to build this monstrosity computer chip manufacturing company with a joint venture with a Chinese company, and that never happened. We saw an electric vehicle that factory that he wanted to bring back to Lordstown. That not only closed, that company went bankrupt, and most of the town now is unemployed. Donald Trump has got to be very careful about how much of a TV personality salesman he puts into this. He's going to have to listen to his economic advisors, and more importantly, he's going to have to read the room, because
does he have reliable economic advisors, sir, at this point?
Rena, that is such a great question and such a loaded question at the same time. I have to have faith in the fact that Donald Trump has some very smart economic advisors. His Council of Economic Advisors do contain very solid economic minds from both academia, the financial industries. So the answer should be yes. My concern, and again, I have to admit, you know, I can't sit here and continue to bash and bash and bash today on a day that Donald Trump is supposed to be doing tariff announcements. We have to admit that pre-pandemic, the Donald Trump economy was incredible. Everybody made money. And that's what everybody was hoping for now after a disastrous economic situation with the Biden administration. This is how Donald Trump got reelected. Does he have viable advisors? Yes. Does he listen to them? That's the big question.
Okay, sir, labor shortages and immigration crackdowns could delay construction and operations. What role does the domestic labor market play in this manufacturing narrative, sir?
Well, it's a broader question than that, Raina. The labor impact on the entire economy is going to be sizable. You know, a lot of the, you know, baseline labor that goes into construction is done by, in many instances, undocumented or questionably documented migrant workers that are in this country, possibly legally, more than likely illegally. We're seeing a big push by Donald Trump to go and capture and deport all of those undocumented migrants. Well, they take up a lot of that hard labor pool that Americans don't do. You don't see a lot of Americans working roofing. They're not putting tar on roofs, or they're not out in the fields picking produce. We've become entitled that way, but there is a strong migrant community that will do those jobs, and our economy requires that in order to maintain lower prices. You start rounding up all those people, not only are we not going to be able to complete the factories because a lot of those jobs are handled by migrant workers, we don't have the skilled labor anymore that can do those jobs in the trades. We're starting to move away from that, but you know, we're not going to be nearly having the labor pool that we're going to be able to do with that. And then the third item is, you know, is there going to be enough of a need? And is there going to be enough credit to go around? Is the economy going to be stable enough to do all this massive building that they're talking about? Because if there's not a demand for products, why would you build a factory? That's the concern.
So wrapping up your narrative, because I have to wrap up this segment, are you optimistic or pessimistic about what's going on now?
Oh, why would you ask me that question, Raina? Am I optimistic or pessimistic? I'm going to ride the fence on this one, Brayna. I am neither. I have faith I have faith in the American system, this great experiment of ours that, common sense will prevail. I am pessimistic that
When do you
too
think
many.
it's gonna prevail, sir?
When do I think it's going to prevail?
Yes.
Oh, if I had that answer, I would be sitting on my boat off the coast of the United
Okay,
States in a big mega.
such an intelligent answer. Thank you very much, Justin Thomas Russell. Thank you very much for your valuable knowledge and, of course, for your informative knowledge. Thank you for your analysis.